The first priority for state representatives is to elect a new Speaker of the House. It's one of the most powerful positions in the state. After 2 rounds of voting, Representative Dustin Burrows won the vote. We're joined now by Matthew Watkins, editor-in-chief of the Texas Tribune.
So, Matthew, thanks so much for taking the time out on what is a very busy day today. Can you talk a little bit about how this Speaker election went this afternoon?
Yeah, so, going into the event, it had really 2 main candidates. You had Dustin Burrows, who had close ties to the past Speaker, Dade Phelan, and David Cook, who was really the representative of a faction of the Republican Party who was opposed, a sort of more insurgent wing of the GOP party, opposing Phelan's rule, trying to take over. You had a lot of sort of grassroots and right-wing financial pressure against members to elect Cook. The GOP caucus had endorsed Cook, and rules say that Republican members needed to vote for them. But ultimately, after 2 rounds of voting, it was Dustin Burrows, the more House establishment leader, who prevailed by an 85 to 55 vote.
Matthew, what are some of Burrows' priorities? I mean, to win by 30 votes is pretty decisive.
Yeah, fairly decisive. The Republicans will possibly take issue with the fact that there were more Democrats on his side than Republicans. That said, his priorities align pretty closely with the Republican priorities. He talked today about wanting to support property tax cuts. He talked about improving water infrastructure, which is popular among, really bipartisan issues. School funding, which could include vouchers, something that he voted for last legislative session, and also protecting the state from terrorism in response to the attack done by a Texan in New Orleans around the new year.
Matthew, this was maybe a little bit ugly coming into today. There's been a lot of money spent. There have been some, threats to lawmakers that they might be primaried depending on how they vote in this. Does this continue a sort of chasm as we go through this legislative session? As you mentioned, Burrows is on board with a lot of the Republican agenda here in Texas right now. Is there a chasm in the party going forward after this?
There is right now, and I think the question is whether Burrows will be able to heal it, right? Like I said, the state GOP party opposed Burrows. Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor, seemed to oppose Burrows. Abbott didn't explicitly oppose Burrows, but he issued a statement that many took to see as an endorsement of Cook. That will be something he'll have to deal with. He's on their side on a lot of things, but there's some personality things that they'll have to work out. Whether he'll be able to do that, I think, will tell the story about whether this is a sort of smooth sailing session for Republican priorities, or whether infighting within the party and some of the kind of personal politics that have kind of consumed the Capitol, the legislature in recent sessions will continue this year.
All right, thanks for that.
Matthew Watkins, the editor-in-chief there at the Texas Tribune. Thanks so much for taking the time today. Again, busy day, we know.
Thanks for having me.